So I was supposed to drop a video on World of Geekdom today about Ryan Johnson versus Mark Hamill and the fans from Star Wars Last Jedi, but I postponed that video for Sunday because I want to talk about me for just a minute. And, a lot of people always tell me that I should talk more about myself, and who I am as a person. And I've done it before, but it is very rare that I do that, on both this channel as well as Geekdom 101. But I want to talk about myself here and hopefully maybe inspire somebody out there to, do better. So, I've had a very rough, I would say, the past 6 months. And really, to be brutally honest with you, I've had a rough few years. But the past few months have been incredibly stressful for me as far as my personal life goes, as far as my non-business life. Everything business-wise, as far as my YouTube channels go, is fine. Like, Geekdom 101 was a tremendous success, and I look to continue to, upload on that channel, for the foreseeable future. It's been a life-changing thing for me. And World of Geekdom is one that I wish it would grow faster, but it hasn't. But that's okay because it lets me do videos like this where I can really talk about it. When it comes to paying the bills, those gimmicks in the mail called bills, I'm good to go. Like, I'm good to go on that. But there's an incredible amount of pain that I've been in for the past few months that really I've been in for the past several years of my life. But it hasn't really manifested itself into, it hasn't really manifested itself until recently. And I say this to say this. I know a lot of people out there go through a lot of pain. Like, I know that you have emotional pain, mental pain, even physical pain. And I feel all three of them right now. So I'm trying to just let you know that you're not alone. I'm going to speak very candidly about myself here. So, for the past year or so, I've been pretty ill. I have not felt well. Now, what I have is apparently I have a infection of my saliva gland. And I've seen 4 different doctors, and this has not been fixed yet. And it's an incredible and excruciating amount of pain. It feels like you have a sore throat on a sore throat on one side, just constantly biting at you, and an earache. And as a result of that, it really is a miracle that I was able to perform, 2-hour live streams and record a video a day or more, sometimes more than one video a day for both channels, or sometimes the same one, while being in this excruciating pain. And they've tried everything from putting me on antibiotics to putting a camera down my throat, and they've checked for everything. And the next step is pretty much to get a surgery. And I don't want to get the surgery because I don't know how long I'm going to be out. I don't know how long I'm not going to be able to speak because it's a surgery that's very intensive in my throat area. I don't want to get the surgery. And I am going to probably have to get the surgery. And it's just been something that I don't talk about with people because I don't want to lower somebody's day or think I'm making excuses. But it's the truth. It's what's been going on. I've also been going through a lot of very emotional pain in my personal life, which has actually gotten worse in the past, I'd say 2 weeks or so, or week, in the past week. It's been very, very bad, very taxing on me and on my heart. When I was younger, so I'm in my early 30s. When I was in my 20s, I never really had any problems. Like, I was very exuberant. I was very, I don't want to say athletic. That's not really the right word, but I was really a real go-getter. And, recently I've noticed I'm starting to slow down. Now, I don't think it's because I'm getting older. Because I'm not really old. That's not what it is. There's been a lot of traumatizing moments that have happened to me in my life that have kind of made me turn into this person. For better or for worse. And what's been going on is I've been going to a therapist for the past, 6 months. I've actually been going longer than that. But the previous therapist that I went to wasn't very good, in my opinion. She just wasn't. It felt like she was reading stuff out of a book without actually diagnosing the issue. So I've been going to another therapist, counselor, whatever, And, you know, we've uncovered some things about me that I didn't know. Now, I knew I had anger issues, you know. And if I've ever gone off on you, if you're listening to this and I've ever gone off on you, right, like on Twitter or on my channel or whatever, please forgive me. I mean that sincerely. I mean, and this is not to like the trolls, it's like to the good people. Just forgive me, because it's just something that I'm dealing with right now. And I've been dealing with it for a while. So there's people out there who have it worse than me, but I haven't really had the best life. You know, before I turned 30, I lost both my parents to smoking related, you know, illnesses. My mother died of cancer and my father died of COPD. And ever since I was 7 years old, I've had a constant battle against smoking because my parents smoked around me when I was a baby, and I got secondhand. That wound up developing into having acute bronchitis. So even I have suffered from it. But, you know, I lost my mom when I was 22 and I lost my dad when I was 29, and it tremendously affected me. I knew it. I didn't have to go to a therapist to know that. It tremendously affected me because, you know, I was pretty much raised an only child. Right? Because my older brother, I have an older brother, but we don't speak. And he was much older than I was. My mom had him in a previous marriage. And when I was kind of growing up, he had already had his own house and he was in college. And, you know, he just didn't live with us. But, so it was pretty much just me and my parents. So my parents kind of became my worldview. You know what I'm saying? My parents became my entire life. And when they died, it was literally like my life left. And I went from like living my life trying to please them, you know, by going to college and getting a career, which I did do. I mean, I went to college, I got an engineering degree, and, you know, I became an engineer for 10 years. I've talked about this before, you know, and so I was kind of living my life just kind of subconsciously, of course, to appease them. And then after they died, it just became one of those things where I became more of a bonehead. You know, I've made a lot of really stupid decisions, very selfish decisions, right, in my life. And I regret every single one of them. I don't like it when somebody says, like, oh, I don't have any regrets. You have to have regrets, I feel, because if you don't, you know, how are you going to learn from it? How are you going to get better? And I've done a lot of really stupid things when it comes to my friendships and relationships in my personal life. And I've sabotaged them, a lot of them. Not all of them. I've been able to save a lot of them. But because of my insecurity, because of my fear, because of my trust issues, all these different things, I've screwed up a lot of different friendships and relationships in my life. And I've tried to mend them, and I have successfully mended many of them. But it still doesn't change the fact that I walk around with an incredible amount of toxic guilt and toxic shame. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, I would consider myself a pretty confident dude. You know, I would consider myself somebody who is really, you know, I try to make people feel better about themselves. And actually, this is, in a way, somewhat cost me, you know, because sometimes I'll spend too much time on a person trying to help them feel better about themselves. And this is the side of me that people never see unless you know me. And sometimes I'll take time away from somebody else, somebody who I should be spending time with. Or sometimes I will make the wrong person feel better about themselves, and then I end up getting snaked. You know what I'm saying? And you know, this is, by the way, this video, I'm not editing this, and this is all like off the cuff. The only thing I'm going to edit is if I cough or something. You know what I mean? Like, y'all cut that out. But, you know, and like I've tried to do good things. You know, I've tried to do good things, but I still walk around with this sort of toxic shame and, you know, toxic, like and I'm not really exactly sure where it came from. I'm not sure if it's from when I was younger and I was bullied. When I was in high school, you know, I got rejected by a lot of girls. I didn't actually start dating until I was 19, after I graduated. You know, I didn't go to prom or any of that shit. I was I wasn't antisocial. People loved me because back in those days we talk about Dragon Ball and like wrestling, and you know, it was a cool time. But You know, I had friends, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't like super popular, even though I kind of was popular. I wasn't like, I still, like, no matter what, I still felt like I didn't belong. You know what I mean? Maybe because I was ashamed about the way I used to look back then because I was morbidly obese when I was in high school. Thankfully, I'm not anymore, but I was back then. And, you know, and it just became this thing. I'm not really sure. I'm still going to therapy for it. I'm not really sure what the solution to all of this is, but you know, it just sucks because I've discovered that I have a tremendous amount of self-hate and self-loathing and depression, which I didn't know that I had. I've been suppressing it for so long because I'm always moving forward. And I'm guessing that when my dad died, that was like the last piece of my childhood that was gone. You know, and people say things like, you know, like people will say over-exaggerated things on social media like, oh, such and such ruined my childhood, like Star Wars or whatever. It's like nothing can ruin your childhood, but losing your parents can. That can ruin your childhood. And like it just really hurts. It really hurts to find this out at this time and to realize that in a lot of cases you can't really go back and fix it. You just can't. Like the damage has been done to a lot of different people and a lot of, you know, in a lot of different times, including myself. And when I say myself, I don't mean that I physically hurt myself. I don't do that. I know some people out there with depression do that. I don't do that, but I mean I've hurt myself in the sense that I've hurt myself emotionally, you know. And you know, these videos are always weird for me because I don't like talking about myself, but I feel like this is a more powerful message than just talking about like cartoons and movies and things like that. I think this is a much more important message. But like, you know, recently I had a therapy session, you know, just a few days ago with my counselor, with my psychologist, and he said that he thinks that I have PTSD. And I know it sounds ridiculous to think that, because you think PTSD, you're thinking like somebody went to like, you know, Iraq or some shit. But no, like, you know, at one time in my life I had gone homeless, I lost everything. I've talked about this before. At one time in my life I made a very bad business decision and a very bad career change move, and I, on top of like depression that I didn't even realize I had back then, I wound up losing everything. I lost it all, you know, including like I lost, like I had some very, very, very important things that were close to my heart. You know, after my mom passed away, I wanted to keep all of her stuff, right? Like I wanted, she had these couches, and she had this dining room table, and I wanted to keep that like for my children. You know what I mean? And my wife. You know, as I would get married some other time. I wasn't married back then, but I mean later on, I was thinking when I do get married and when I do have kids, like, this is going to be theirs, and I had to lose it. I had to give it up. And that hurt. That hurt me because I did not want to give that up. And right now, as we speak, I have very few items left behind that belonged to my mother. My father had a bunch of them, and he lost them, and then he passed. So I don't have a lot left here that belonged to my mother, heirlooms. And there was actually a videotape that was taken, right, literally like a few months before she died, and I can't find that tape. I don't know if anybody has it. It's, you know, our old neighbors took it, and I don't even know where the hell they moved to. This was years ago. This was like 2006, right? It was like a long time ago. And, you know, like, those kind of things bother me, and they're in my head, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. I should be able to move on from this, but, you know, it's not that easy. And as a result of this pain, and I'm different. Everybody's different. That's one thing I want to say is that everyone's different. Some people out there, if you go through some shit like this, you can bounce back. Others, it affects you. You know, obviously there's people out there who are hungry, and, you know, there's people out there who are homeless now. And I've been in that situation before, and I try to help them out as best I can sometimes. But, you know, different things hit you, and they manifest differently. So, like, if something bad happens to you when you're, like, 15, you know, and I hear a lot about this through my psychologist friends who deal with like rape victims and people who are victims of abuse, verbal, physical, or when they have something traumatic happen, like somebody dies. Like I told you, like my parents, you know, it might not affect you right away. It might take years and years before it manifests. And it might manifest in ways that you don't even realize. And that's kind of what I'm going through. In that, it might these issues that I'm having, I didn't even realize I was having them, because in my 20s I was freaking crazy. I was having such a good time. I was going out, and I still do those things from time to time, don't get me wrong, but I was like going out, having a good time. I was traveling a lot in the state of Florida. I was doing a lot of cool things in my 20s, right? Just cool shit. And then recently, just like, I feel like I'm falling apart. And it's gotten worse because, like, now that I'm going to therapy and I'm having these personal problems, it's now coming out like, okay, this is bad. And I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get better. Mental health is just as bad as physical health as far as if it goes bad, And I've got to pretty much come to terms with the fact that I never got over that. I just never, like, in my brain, I never got over, losing everything, going homeless. I literally lost everything. I mean, I literally was sleeping in friends' houses. I didn't have a job. I was sleeping in this roach-infested, karate dojo. Like, I was just bad, and that fucked me up because it made me not trust anybody. It made me very frugal, and very conservative when it came to money. I didn't like to I don't like spending money on stuff, on like dumb stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very good with saving and planning and things like that. I'm very good at it. And I'm very good at like investments and things like that. Like, I am. I wasn't back then, but I am now because of that pain. So the pain made me better, but I feel like the pain that I've dealt with as far as my mother and my father dying is still there. I don't think I ever got over that. I don't think I ever got over it. And I say that to say this. If you're out there and something traumatic happened to you, maybe, and I know it's not cheap. Trust me, I know it's not cheap. Try and talk to a therapist or a counselor or somebody about it and see if you have any issues. See if you're manifesting any problems. Anything that might manifest later in life. And I know a lot of people listening to this are younger, and you might not even notice what's wrong with you until later in life when you become very self-destructive. And I don't want to be self-destructive anymore. I don't want to be. I feel like I've been a pussy for way too long when it comes to this shit. I feel like the time has come for me to really just look this thing in the eye and say, screw you, I'm going to change. I'm going to be better. I'm going to improve myself, which I'm always about. I've done it in the past. I have self-improved myself a lot, but this has been the one thing I have not been able to beat. This is the one demon I cannot defeat, or I haven't been able to yet, right? Because I didn't even know it existed. I mean, like I said, how am I supposed to take somebody telling me I had PTSD? Like every time you think of PTSD, you think, okay, like I said, like, you're in Afghanistan or something. But no, this is like the same thing. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. You go through something traumatic, like you get into a car accident, which I did. I got involved in a hit-and-run accident in 2007. I got nailed by some dude. I lost my car that I had worked so hard to pay for. I've been through everything, bro. I'm still alive. And even though sometimes it really got bad earlier this week when I laid down and I didn't want to wake up. There was a time earlier this week where I laid down in my bed and I actually did not want to wake up. I wasn't suicidal, but I didn't want to wake up. And that's when you've hit rock bottom. I hate talking about this on videos because it's not something I like talking about. You know what I mean? I try to inspire people and I try to make them feel better about themselves, and maybe this video will make somebody out there say, hey, I'm going through the same thing. Nice to know that somebody else is. But, one thing I want to say is that YouTubers are people. So before you leave that nasty comment or that sarcastic comment about, the way they look or their content, I really think, being a troll is to me just a waste of time. It really is. Bringing somebody down is just a waste of time. And, before you leave that comment, if you are a troll listening to this, think about it. Like, really think, what is that person going through? I have a friend of mine who I'm not going to name. I actually have two friends, and they know who they are. one lost their grandfather, one lost their grandmother. I have another friend who lost his mother and his wife had a miscarriage within like 3 days. Like, you don't know what's going on, dude. Like, you don't know. And just because somebody's happy in a video, they might have recorded that video weeks ago, days ago, and they might be going through some shit, or they fake it. When I record my videos, I've been going through a lot of pain. And it's not that I was faking it, but I put away my sadness and my depression to record, enthusiastic videos because it helps me cope with it, right? It's not like it's fake. But once the camera or once the microphone turns off, then what? Then real life begins again. So I just wanted to say that. And, take care of yourself and each other, dude. I don't know what else to say.